to North Country Storytellers. We appreciate you being here, and thank you for any donations that you may have brought for the food pantry and helping with hunger in our area. We are excited to be taking our North Country Toastmasters group out of our regular meeting space at Thayers Inn and onto the big stage here for the first time. We'd like to thank the Opera House and including me for being here today. We are very excited to share our stories with you today. I am Dana Kummerfeld. I will be the MC for the event this afternoon, and I will be guiding us through our program. Part of my job as the MC is to let you know a few things, and one of those things is the standard: if you have your cell phone, please make sure that it is quiet. Next, if you have not been to the Opera House before and you do need to use the restroom, it's right through those double doors to the back left. And finally, if you would like to take photos, go ahead and take photos. Please just don't use the flash because it can be a distraction. And with that housekeeping out of the way, I would like to talk to you about the power of story and a few reasons why it is so important. The first reason is that it helps us learn how to be humans. Stories can show us how to follow a hero's journey and teach us about society. We start hearing stories when we're very young, when we start hearing fairy tales. And if you remember any fairy tales, most fairy tales have a moral to that story in which you learn your morals for your life to use. Stories have impacted the course of humanity throughout time in a number of ways. We can learn from the mistakes of the past through history, as an example. And history includes the word story. History is just stories of things that went before. And while the stories of others help us to understand, sharing our own stories helps us to relate with each other. Being able to express yourself, being able to tell your story is so important to your relationships to others and your relationships to the world. Tonight, 8 members of North Country Toastmasters will be sharing their stories with you. We hope you're entertained by what you're about to hear, and you may also learn a few things along the way. So thanks for joining us today, and let's get started. Our first speaker is Liz Brisson. A Toastmaster for over a decade, Liz Brisson has given hundreds of speeches. But tonight's speech is one that she's very passionate about. Her ability to approach life with a beginner's mind and her unwavering belief in the Toastmasters mission has provided Liz with many opportunities to grow personally and professionally. Plus, it has helped her get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Sometimes in life, things get messed up. We overthink, and we overanalyze and assume. It's part of being human. By going to prison, she realized that none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. And Liz believes everyone deserves a second chance. The names have been changed in her story to protect the innocent or the guilty. Please help me welcome inmate 99365, Liz Brisson, to share her story of how she ended up in prison. There is nothing like the sound of the heavy steel door when it slams shut behind you. I remember a guard by my side as I continued to walk straight
straight ahead, not looking left or right, trying not to draw attention to myself. I was surrounded by a chain link fence, barbed wire overhead, and in the distance, I could hear voices and the basketball bouncing in the yard. If it weren't for my addiction, I wouldn't be in this mess. It's a terrible mistake. There was no substantial evidence in my case. Many said it was ludicrous that I was here. Yet, here it was, inside prison. Now, growing up, particularly in high school, the kids used to call me Miss Prim and Proper. I'm a little nervous going into prison with anyone knowing that's what I was called as a kid. So I thought what I could do to prepare and get toughened up is I watched hours of episodes of Locked Up, Prison Break, and yeah, Orange is the New Black. Yeah. I was ready. And if I wasn't tough enough, I just fake it till I make it, as they say. And that's how things started for me, going to prison. But I didn't go to prison like you might think I did. Instead, I went to prison willingly. Do you want to know why? Yes. Yeah. And here's the rest of the story. It was 5 years ago. In fact, it was September 15th, 2013. I received a letter from the Northern Correctional Facility in Berlin, New Hampshire. I don't know anyone in prison. I don't know anyone that works in prison. And imagine my surprise when I got a letter from an inmate. Now, it was addressed to the president of our North Country Toastmasters Club, which, lucky me, I was the president at the time. And it was from an inmate asking me if I would help him start a Toastmaster prison club. Now, I had to weigh the pros and cons. That's where you can laugh. Because here I was asked to go into an all-men's facility. Their crimes were of varying degrees. I didn't have a background in criminal justice or in social work. But, quite frankly, it made me uncomfortable to think about going inside. And think to yourself, what would you have done if you got that letter? Would you have just tossed it away and just ignored it? Well, those that said it was ludicrous for me to go inside prison, I ignored that. And I said, I'm going to go. And that's how I spend my free time, going to prison. Now, when I arrived, I was met by the Department of Corrections program director. And let's just call her Sue. And Sue was the one that was guiding me. Not as a guard, and maybe she was kind of guarding me, but more as my guardian, to continue to give me the courage to walk into the prison, to the classroom, where we would be holding the very first Toastmaster Prison Club in New Hampshire, where I would meet 20 hardened criminals. And as I walked down this long corridor, I kept getting further and further inside. I had to smile to myself because when I walked by the chow hall, they were dressed in orange. But that's another story. I'm in the classroom, waiting for the 20 hardened criminals to arrive, and they walk in. They treat me with respect. They introduce themselves. and they thank me for being there. In fact, they still thank me today for going and spending my free time to work with them. And once again, my preconceived ideas about what life would be like behind bars, or what these hardened criminals would be like, were totally unfounded. What I see when I go is that these men are eager to learn. They're prepared every meeting with speeches of hope, humility, and humor, because one needs to have a sense of humor to survive inside. And these men want nothing more than to show those on the outside that they are working on rehabilitating themselves. These men have jobs inside. They are learning trades, and they're getting educated. I am seeing firsthand how Toastmasters can help them get more confidence, become more competent communicators, and more effective leaders. That they're not just locked in a box and the key thrown away, they are trying to get ready and prepare themselves for coming back out. Now these men, I mean, they're committed. Well, we know they're committed, but committed to the Toastmaster program is what I'm talking about. They are wanting, when they get released, to speak to the youth at risk, to help guide them on a different path than they chose. And then there are some that want to do ministry work, and others that are in for life, find purpose, mentoring. Those men that will get released. And what I find is that these men are really trying to work hard. Now, this program has been in place for 5 years now. And I know it'll sound strange, but it's kind of bittersweet because some of them have been released. But as a volunteer, I can't have any contact with them once they're outside. And as a result, I have no idea what they're doing or how they're doing. I did read an article where Toastmasters, or Toastmaster Prison Program, has helped prisoners in a result of lower recidivism rate by attending a Toastmaster Prison Program. So hopefully this is helping them. Last year, at one of our Toastmaster conferences, someone tapped me on the shoulder, and we'll just call him James. It was James from inside. He was part of our Toastmaster prison group. He was on the outside, seemed to be doing well, had a job. And most of all, what touched me is that he joined Toastmasters on the outside. But not all of them have a happy ending. Because when they leave prison, they have very little money in their pocket. They have to find transportation. They have to find a home. They're trying to reconnect with their family that was broken apart when they got sent to prison. And on top of all that, they have to find a job. If they're lucky to find a job. One of the men in our group said that the last time he was released, he applied to 100 jobs in this area. Not one single interview. I came across a study that said over 700,000 prisoners on a national basis are released annually. And that's not the 9 million still sitting in jail waiting for their trials. And out of that 700,000 prisoners that have been released within 3 years, they will reoffend. And this man that applied to 100 jobs, he did what he had to do to survive on the streets. He's back inside. And that's a shame, because despite having serve their time. Oftentimes, they're not given a second chance when they're outside. Think about it. Are we still judging them, even though they've already been judged? And are our preconceived ideas about individuals in custody, which is the proper term to use in New Hampshire, are we letting those assumptions of ours be our moral compass? Instead, maybe we could look at them for who they really are, and that is human beings. Now, I'm not naive enough to think that I can change the criminal behavior, nor do I condone the crimes that they have committed. But if I can help a few get on a better path than they're on, maybe to help them learn that there are others on the outside that still believe in them, perhaps they'll believe once more in themselves. The doors slam shut behind me once and this time I am outside. And I'm heading home for my hour-long drive thinking that for me, going to prison was not a mistake after all. And I swear, Your Honor, that's the whole truth and nothing but the truth, how I ended up going to prison.
I'm going to try to stay out. Inspiring. Our next speaker is Tim Daly. And Tim Daly is the founder and director of Tarleton Castle Arts, which is a nonprofit residency center in the town of Bath, New Hampshire. Tim has been a Toastmaster for just a little under a year, and he joined because he felt he needed to improve and develop his ability to tell the community about his project. This speech is not about the castle, but it's about the obstacles to being able to get his message across. And part of the process of learning to be a better public speaker includes crafting speeches with specific goals. This speech was created in response to a speech that I had given when Tim was part of our Speechcraft program. I gave a presentation about gestures and how your body language can help you get your message across. Presenting God's Frozen People, please help me welcome Tim Daly.
Good afternoon, everyone. I believe it was the 5th or 6th meeting that I went to at Toastmasters when Dana gave the speech that she just referenced. It was a wonderful speech. It was animated and humorous and informative. But there was one thing that she said, one fact that she gave, that I had a small degree of issue with. She said that it was normal for people to use hand motions as they speak. Well, perhaps that's true. But some of you may agree that it's more true for some than for others. As many Americans, my background is a polyglot of nationalities. There are at least 7. But the predominant ones are Scotch and English. Neither group is known for demonstrative displays their hands. My late wife, who was Norwegian, was adopted to this country as a very young girl, and she ended up on Philadelphia's main line. If you're not familiar with the main line, it's an upper crust blue blood bastion. To fit in on the main line, it helps if you walk with an air of superiority, nose in the air, and speak through clenched teeth. Hand motions are not required. My wife referred to her fellow inhabitants of the main line and their Scot and English forebears as God's frozen people. That was my first strike against me and my use of hand motions, my heredity and genetics. The second strike against me is tradition and religion. I was raised as a friend, or as we're more commonly known, a Quaker. Quakers, while known for their strong will, are also not known for demonstrative display. Centuries ago, one of my ancestors was read out of meeting. Now, in a Quaker meeting, there is no priest, there is no pastor, there is no orator. There are only the elders. And if there's an issue that concerns the meeting, the elders would meet and decide what to do about that issue. In this case, they wrote a proclamation concerning my ancestor. So they wrote it out, they each signed it, and then one of their number was selected to read it out loud in meeting. And in doing so, that elder read my ancestor out of the meeting forever. So what did he do? What was his crime? Why was he barred from the meeting? Well, I'll tell you, that if you have a delicate disposition, you may wish to cover your ears. Because what he did was, he sang. That's right, he raised his voice in song. Worse, he danced with Baptists. So he was removed from society and friends forever. There's a third strike against my use of hand motions as I speak, and that was my immediate family. Now, in my family, there are many artists, but there are even more English majors. My mother was both. And although she did sing, and she did dance, and her paintings and sculptures were vibrant, full of life that spoke to you in many ways, when it came to speaking to someone, to addressing them, if I made even the slightest gesture with my hand, she would say, "Timothy, we do not speak with our hands. Use your vocabulary." So perhaps some of you have identified to some small degree with some of these restrictions on yourselves. If so, I would like to offer some humble advice. For the first one, for your heredity or genetics, obviously you can't change that. But you can change who you hang out with. I know in my case, dating an Italian girl for 3 years loosened me up considerably. For the second one, for tradition or religion, I wouldn't dream of telling anyone to alter their family's traditions or religion. However, fortunately, most churches and organizations are a little more liberal than they were in the days of my ancestors. For the third one, for your immediate family, take all of the love that your family has to offer and take it to heart. But when it comes to their edicts, their rules, if they're holding you back in making you one of God's frozen people, and you wish to thaw, then perhaps they should be started. Thank you.
Really fun to see how far Tim has come in both his speaking as well as his gestures since he had originally given that speech and learned about those gestures, and now is passing the information on to others. Our next speaker is Jill Kimball. Jill Kimball is a member of North Country Toastmasters since 2011. And her speech today gives us a glimpse into a day over a decade ago that changed her life forever. A day she thought would never arrive. Her story reminds us not to give up hope despite overwhelming obstacles, and why we should always strive to remain positive through adversity. With her story cautiously optimistic, please help me welcome Jill Kimball.
Have you ever wanted something so badly that you were afraid to even imagine it for fear that it wouldn't come true? Have you ever had that thing come so close to reality and then at the last minute your hopes were dashed? Maybe we all have had that in some way. But for me, that experience happened just over 10 years ago. Cautiously optimistic, she said. I took a deep breath. Exhaled. I replayed the conversation in my head over again. I was at work and I had just hung up the phone from a director of an agency I was working with. She said I could be cautiously optimistic. Jill, she said, you're next on the list. We might have something for you this month. Of course, there's no guarantee, but you can be cautiously optimistic. But how could I be? I had waited to hear those words for so long. It had been a decade of missed opportunities, dashed hopes, grief. I had to put those things aside. I had to let those emotions go for my own sanity. So instead, I buried myself in my work, my career, my family, my hobbies. I couldn't think that the one thing I wanted so much might never come true. So on a shelf, those emotions went. That was on a Wednesday. On Thursday, I decided to let my coworker in on my little news. What? She said, shouldn't we go get some stuff, or do you want to go shopping and get a little prepared? I said, no, I don't think so. I didn't want to jinx it. You know, jinxing? When you want something so bad, you're afraid to even utter it. You're afraid to let it out because the gods somewhere might decide that you're too egomaniacal and they humble you and they pull it from you at the last minute. No, I didn't want to jinx it. On Friday, I decided I would tell my boss about my opportunity. It only seemed fair. Give her a little notice to find my replacement. Jill, she said, thank you for telling me the truth and being honest with me. I wish you the best of luck. On Saturday, I woke to the hottest day on record, and even though it was June, the temperatures were rising to 80 degrees. And I was hosting a yard sale. And I had throngs of people on my lawn looking for bargains. At around 10 o'clock, I decided to go in for a drink. And And as I opened the door to go inside, I heard the phone ringing. Ring! 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 I heard the answer machine pick up and then disconnect. A couple minutes went by, and the phone started ringing again. And this time it sounded louder, more insistent. Ring! Ring! I picked up my pace and I lunged for the phone. Hello? It was Jean from the agency. Hi, Jean. Jeez, it's a hot one today, isn't it? Yeah, it sure is. Why was she calling me so soon after I just spoke to her? And on a Saturday? Jill, she said, we're ready for you. We're hoping you can come tomorrow. Tomorrow? I said. Yes, she said. To the hospital. The hospital? I said. Yes, she said, to the hospital. And Jill, congratulations. Congratulations? She says, yes. You have a baby boy. My emotions overwhelmed me, and I didn't know what to do or to think. I had put those emotions on hold for so long that it was as if I had no emotions at all. I wasn't ready. Most women have 9 months to get ready for a baby. When you adopt, you don't. Slowly, minute by minute, reality started coming into play. I had no crib, I had no diapers, and I had no clue what to expect. As the hours went by that day, slowly I started acclimating myself to the situation, what was going to happen. But it really wasn't a void. I really don't remember much of what happened that day. On Sunday morning, we woke up early because it was a long journey to the hospital, about 2 hours. With each mile as I got closer to the hospital, I felt more real. Every mile, I had a new emotion. When we got to the hospital and I walked down the hallway, they opened the doors for the maternity ward, and sunlight just filled my soul. A gentle nurse took my hand and she brought me into a room. She told me to sit down on the bed and breathe. In the distance I could hear like a squeaky wheel of a cart getting closer. And with each footstep, my heart beat a little bit more. Finally, the door opened, and the gentle nurse presented me with this tiny bundle wrapped in a warm blanket. It was my boy, my baby. And as I looked down upon him and his little face, I knew instantly he was mine. And all that cautiously optimistic was replaced by pure optimism and joy. I was optimistic about the future and the places we would go and all the things that we would see together. I was optimistic for him and his future. I breathed in his fresh smell with springtime and apricots. I touched his little toes and his hands, and I knew my life was going to change. I was finally a mom.
I hope you enjoyed my little cameo on that. I also know that boy in that story, and he is much larger than me now. for 7 years. She realized after her very first club speech that writing down speaking notes and pre-rehearsing made her too nervous, so she delivered the next 15 speeches without preparation. For today's story, she decided to address her fear of rehearsal and will be using notes for her personal tale about the 2 4-letter words that changed her life. Please help me welcome Megan Wright.
Ladies and gentlemen, fellow storytellers, welcome and hi. My hope is that you're inspired by my story. The 2 4-letter words that changed my life. My first 4-letter word is pain. P-A-I-N. Which I also like to think of as a prescription, apparently, is needed. As a kid and as an adult, I've had the very good fortune of being pretty healthy. I've also been pretty active, and despite what you see going on right now, I'm really not even accident prone, considering all of the adventurous things that I've done in my life. Some of those things that I like are hiking, climbing up trees, building a fort, standing on the 2nd-story roof, looking down at a huge pile of fresh snow and jumping right on it. I loved sledding down a long, steep hill that we had as a kid. You could almost see the end, and then go up into the air and bounce on the ground. I love horseback riding, and I love motorcycle riding, speedboating, and skydiving out of a perfectly good airplane. As a teenager, I really, really wanted to be a cheerleader, and I wanted to be a volleyball player. I was too shy and insecure as a kid, though. I didn't pursue either one of them. Activities that involved me and only a few other people, that's where I felt safe and that's where I felt comfortable. I also wanted to be a gymnast. I wanted to be a commercial airline pilot. And I wanted to be a stunt double in the movies. Ooh, and a stand-up comic. The one giant thing that got in my way as a kid and that I had absolutely no idea how to fix, it was my lack of self-confidence. Another thing that got in my way as a kid was my shyness. It was very, very painful for me. I really wasn't comfortable initiating a conversation with anybody. Friends, family around the dinner table, I felt uncomfortable there. Acquaintances, strangers, forget it. I would never go up to a stranger. Sharing my thoughts and my opinions with people, it terrified me. Oh my gosh, I remember this teacher in junior high. Oh, he made us all speak in front of our class. I was mortified. I said, oh my God, no, please don't make me get up on stage. I can't do it. I can't do it. He said, you will do it, or you won't get a passing grade. I got up in front of my class shaking. I had so much terror and nauseous. I felt nauseous. I dropped my notes in front of my class and they laughed at me. Frankly, that experience really scarred me. For months, I was royally pissed off at that teacher for making me do this, without giving me any coaching at all to help me get through it. Throwing a really shy kid like me in the fire like that, I thought it was extremely counterproductive. In fact, it just reinforced my fear of people that much more. Wherever possible, I avoided anything that might leave me vulnerable to ridicule, like speaking to groups, like acting in the school play, or being on a sports team like volleyball. So to sum it up, folks, I was shy, I lacked confidence, and I loved adventure that had some risk associated to it. As long as I didn't have to speak much, or lead, or be a part of a team, I was good to go. Ooh, I wanted to be a martial arts expert too. It took me years and years into my adulthood to muster up the courage to walk into a studio and take a demo class. But once I did, it was because I had really gotten sick and tired of being so scared. I just needed to do it. I needed to join an activity that had a group and get over this fear that I had. It was time for me to take a chance. So I did it. I went to martial arts classes 2 times a week for almost a year. Now this is where this 4-letter word comes in. Pain. And how it changed my life. I experienced 2 accidents. One when I was 30 and one when I was 40 that have affected me to this day. My first injury was in martial arts at age 30. I got flipped onto my back. I was in a competition. I felt this weird sensation in my back, and I felt this kind of a pop in my low back. I didn't need to go to the hospital. I hobbled around. I couldn't finish the competition, and I knew that that was going to be the end of my martial arts training. I walked around wearing this back brace that I bought at a pharmacy for $10, and I wore it a lot. My friend said to me, Megan, don't you think you should go to a chiropractor or something? Yeah, I probably should. 5 years after I got hurt in that accident, I made my first chiropractic appointment. I'm a Taurus, you guys. I'm very stubborn. So it took me a long time to seek some help for this injury that I had. But once I went to a chiropractor, it was from that point on that I became a quick and firm believer in all of these holistic therapies that I was starting to learn about as a result of this chronic low back pain that I had and my desperation to get out of it. Injury number 2. This happened when I was 40 years old. It was a car crash, head-on and T-bone on the side at the same time. It caused a herniated disc in my neck, nerve damage down my arm, I broke my ankle, and I had such severe whiplash that I had to walk around with this neck brace on for a very long time. I wore this boot for 4 months. I lost work for 4 months. That accident changed the shape of my cervical spine. I used to have a little bit of a rounding, and now it's completely flat. Pain, that 4-letter word, would change my life. It forced me to seek so many different kinds of therapy. Holistic is what my preference was, because I'm not one to take medication. I don't want to take over-the-counter pills even. So I learned about the countless naturopathic ways to help my situation. As a direct result of these injuries, a whole new world opened up for me that I never expected, anticipated, or imagined for myself as a child. The world of holistic healthcare, energy healing, and so much more. Now, I'm on to the second 4-letter word that changed my life. Yoga, which I also like to think of as, yes, oh girl, we've got some answers. See, our ego, it doesn't want to be damaged. It doesn't want to be challenged or exposed to the elements. The most magical thing about yoga is it became the ideal guidance and mentor that I needed in my life. Yoga found me. It pulled me out of my shell. It supported me lovingly, slowly, and supportively, just the way I needed it. I dared to take my first yoga class. Hurting, stiff, nowhere near being able to touch the floor. I was very concerned about my athletic ability. I was completely out of my league. I knew again I had to push out of my comfort zone like I did with martial arts. So I went and I took my first class. Little did I know that walking through those doors and onto that mat would change and transform my life, both personally and professionally. Yoga helped me heal in ways that are obvious physically, but it helped me in other ways too. Ways that I had no comprehension of when I walked into my first class. You see, yoga is a lifestyle. It's ancient. It was formed thousands and thousands of years ago, and it's designed to help union, to bring in body, mind, and spirit so that we can live in the most balanced, kind way that we can. Learning about this philosophy absolutely changed my world. Not only did my body get stronger, my attitude changed, my perspective in life changed, my relationships with people changed, and my confidence really built. I also learned to connect to something bigger than myself and my ego. Through yoga, I learned how to stretch in a way that was really healthy for the discs that I had herniated in my body. I was able to learn how to loosen tension in my spine and help me move again in a way that I couldn't before. I can touch my toes now without any problems at all. I was so inspired and encouraged by the amount of improvement that I had in my body that I just knew this was going to be the start of the rest of my life. I need to be able to teach this. But I'm shy, remember? I don't have a whole lot of confidence. Yoga planted that seed. I need to go. I need to teach. I need to be at the front of the room. It was like a calling. So I went to teacher training and I studied intensely for 7 years. Finally, I went from the back of the mat to the front of the mat, from the back of the room to the front of the room, and one day I turned and faced, and I had a group of people that I was teaching to. It was a very proud moment. I've taught now over 500 group classes. I've spoken at a health conference to 50 people about my specialty in chronic pain. I've created a health fair. These are all things that I would have never imagined for myself as this shy, insecure kid. It's pain and yoga that changed my life. I hope my story is inspiring for you so that you can move past anything that you're uncomfortable with and go right in, because it's there that you'll see gifts and blessings beyond your wildest imagination. Everyone take a nice big inhale through your mouth. Exhale through your nose. Inhale through your nose, and exhale through your mouth. My body feels strong like a warrior now. My mind feels calm like a tree. And my spirit feels so happy that I'm delighted in being just me. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun illuminate radiance upon your face. May the moon light up the superstar that you are. And remember, you are fine just the way you are. Namaste. Class is adjourned.
far. At this time, we're going to take a quick break, about 10 minutes or so. And there is a bake sale outside that you may have seen when you came in. So if you need any snacks or refreshments, they are available by donation. And we'll meet you back here in 10 minutes for some more stories. Welcome back to North Country Storytellers. We have 4 more stories coming up for you this afternoon that will put ourselves on display as Toastmasters. We also have following we'll be doing exercise, and our group will be doing something called story stick, which will explain a little bit more what we get here. So let's get started with our first story of the second set. Being the month of October, it is a fantastic time to share stories, especially a scary one. Toastmaster Josh Simons has always loved stories about ghosts and the supernatural, and he's here today to share with you a story of one of New Hampshire's most famous hauntings, as well as a personal story about the time he encountered the ghostly. Please welcome Josh Simons to tell you his story about haunted New Hampshire.
There is a 5th dimension beyond that which is known to man. It is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is a middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call New Hampshire. Tell me, raise your hand if you're someone who believes in ghosts. Okay. Even braver now, raise your hand if you've had an experience or think you've seen a ghost. Okay. Regardless of your beliefs, regardless if you've had an encounter with ghosts or not, the rugged terrain of New Hampshire is filled with story upon story of ghostly figures and supernatural beings. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the story of the princess in the Mount Washington Hotel. The other grand hotel in our area, the Mountain View Grand, is supposedly haunted, and right down the road from there, the hosts of the Sci-Fi Channel's Ghost Hunters TV show bought the Spalding Inn because apparently it is so haunted. There's even whispers about this very building we're in being haunted. Even one of New Hampshire's most famous geological formations, Mount Washington, is supposed to be home to a presence. From the legends of the Native Americans who wouldn't step foot on the mountain, to the experiences of meteorologists who had encounters with this ghostly presence in the observation center at the top of the mountain. There's story upon story about Mount Washington. One of the most famous stories of a haunting in New Hampshire comes from Mount Washington. It was one year, winter was over, and the Appalachian Mountain Club was anxious to get the huts opened up at the top of the mountain. During the winter, they were all boarded up to save them from the elements. There was a gentleman who was responsible for going up to the top of the mountain to open up this AMC hut. He had instructions when he left to radio his friends when he got to the top of the mountain. He left that morning. His friends never heard back from him. The evening came and went. Friends still hadn't heard from him. So that following morning, they decided that they were going to go up to the mountain, up to the Appalachian Mountain Club hut, and see if they could find their friend. They go to the top. There's no sign of them anywhere. None of the boards were taken off the windows. The hut was all closed up as if nobody had made it. They're yelling his voice, trying to get his attention. It wasn't until one of his friends was searching in the cabinets in the kitchen that they opened up the cabinet underneath the sink, and huddled underneath the sink, clutching an axe in his white, trembling hands, was this hiker. And it wasn't until he was recovering in the hospital the following day did he tell people what had happened. He had got to the top of the mountain, as was the plan, and before he started to take the boards off the windows, he wanted to relax a bit. So he's in the hut, just taking it easy, when in the glass of the windows appeared a face. The boards were still on the outside of the hut to protect the hut from the elements. And in between the board and the glass appeared a face that bulged out into the room. Not only in one window, but in all of the windows of this hut. And he forgot everything that had happened after that. He didn't know how he ended up under the sink. He didn't know how he ended up clutching that axe. To this day, nobody knows what happened. I have been on Mount Washington. I've had no encounters with this presence. I can't tell you if it's haunted or not. But I can tell you about an experience that I had right at the base of Mount Washington, just about 20-25 minutes from here in the town of Jefferson, New Hampshire. I want to take a step back in time to 1998, when I was just 19 years old. We're going to the Applebrook Inn in Jefferson. I had a friend who had a friend who was house sitting the Applebrook Inn. His aunt and uncle were the innkeepers, and they were on vacation and needed somebody to watch it. The nephew was having a get-together. We were invited to go over. So the Applebrook Inn is a quaint Victorian-style farmhouse. It's beautiful. You go inside, the bottom floor is cozy and spacious, just as you'd imagine a bed and breakfast would be. The second floor has rooms, comfortable, spacious, but the third floor is never rented. As we were hanging out with a nephew, he was talking to us about how the Applebrook Inn is apparently haunted. And not just a little haunted, very, very haunted. He told us a story about how his aunt and uncle were outside doing landscaping work one day, and they were the only people on the property when the window of the third floor exploded outward. And all of the contents of the room that would fit through a window was thrown out onto the lawn as if sucked out of the room by a vacuum. The lamps, the sheets, the curtains, the pillows, all sucked out of the window. In all of my teenage bravado, I said, there is no way that this place is haunted. Absolutely not. The nephew said, okay, let's go find out. So we go up the stairs, up to the second floor. It's in November, it's nice and cozy, it's heated. Go up the third floor stairs and get up into the hallway. Kind of narrow space up on the third floor, it's just the hallway. And off this hallway are two windows, or excuse me, rooms. Doors were open. You can look into each of these rooms. There's a bed, little tables beside the bed. That's it. Nice and cozy upstairs because the heat rises. But as soon as you step foot into either of these rooms, you're so cold that you can see your breath. As soon as I entered into the room, I exhaled, and a big cloud of breath came out from me. Out into the hallway, nice and cozy. Into one of these rooms, so cold you can see your breath. I know this is a classic sign of supernatural activity, and that's all it took for me to get downstairs. I didn't want anything else to do with the upstairs of the apple burger. So we go downstairs, and this happened to all of us, so we're all standing around talking about how strange this all was. Nice and warm in the hallway, frigid and freezing in these rooms. And we're standing there, and I feel something. I had been wearing a t-shirt with a long sleeve shirt over it. And on my left shoulder, from here to about here, was soaked through. Soaked through. And it took a while before it, whatever it was, just soaked through both layers of clothing, so I actually felt it. Now, the scientific community of folks who do paranormal research have this idea that spirits or ghosts have the ability to produce ectoplasm. If you've ever seen Ghostbusters, you know what I'm talking about, and I have to tell you, I think I was slime. I don't know what it was. I couldn't tell you to this day what it was. I will tell you that I've never been back to the Applebrook Inn. Never. So a word to the wise. As you make your way through the rugged terrain of New Hampshire, be careful where you find yourself. You may find yourself in that middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition. You may just find yourself face to face with something you can't explain.
Couldn't see that. Our next speaker has something perhaps a little nicer and less scary to talk about. We'll find out. Isaac Bars has loved a good story since he was a little guy, and that love of storytelling is one of the reasons that he joined Toastmasters. Whether it be a fairy tale or a real story, he appreciates how, when told correctly, a story can bring you to times and places that you may have never experienced yourself. Today he brings a story of an important event in his life that happened on this day 8 years ago. Please help me welcome Isaac Bars to tell you about the time he kind of eloped.
Props. Today is an important day. And no, not just because today is the North Country Storytellers. So, I mean, that's exciting too, don't get me wrong. But today is my anniversary. 8 years married. Pretty big deal. I think so. I met my husband 8 years ago, or 10 years ago, at the Lancaster Farmers Market. I was selling vegetables that I grew at my farm across the river over Bloomberg, and he was working at a cell phone store that was in town. As far as we can tell, he noticed me first. In my defense, I was busy trying to convince people that my winter squash was the best squash, and they should give me money for it, obviously. He didn't talk to me right away. It took a few weeks. He talked to his coworkers about it, apparently, referring to me as Lettuce Boy, because he didn't know my name. Eventually, he worked up the gumption to talk to me. So, picture this. Lancaster Farmers Market, fall, 2008. I'm there, selling all of my produce, like cabbage, like this. And I look up, and I see this tall, handsome glass of water walking my way. You may recognize him. This is the guy that just told that story before me. The spooky one, tried to get you guys to jump. So, I got ready to put on my salesman smile and greet him. He walked up to me and said the first words that would start off our relationship. Corn? Thinking I had misheard him because, I was thinking maybe he was a normal, friendly human being. I said, good morning. No. Do you have corn? I'm looking for corn. As luck would have it, I didn't have corn. But I did convince him to buy a mini pumpkin. To this day, he says that I overcharged him for it. He's wrong. It was a fantastic pumpkin and worth every penny. Eventually, we figured things out. Clearly. We were inseparable from that point on. It was like everything just went out the window and it was a whirlwind of new love and life was just wonderful. And it didn't take us too long to think, maybe we should make this official. So fast forward to 2010, June. It was my granny's funeral. I know, it's a good way to start a romantic story, right? We were going down south, and we thought we'd leave a day early to go and check out Salem, Massachusetts. We'd never been there, and it sounded pretty cool. We both wanted to check it out. So we figured, why not? So while exploring, we went from tourist trap to tourist trap. Each one seemed to be cheesier than the last. It was actually pretty bad. The worst one was, I think it was the Museum of the Modern Witch or something really schlocky like that. And on our way, Josh, being the sneaky guy that he is, pulled up, oh, I forgot something back at the museum. I'll meet up with you. Goes back to the museum and asks the attendant, so, what's a really good place to propose in town? She suggested the Salem Witch Trial Memorial. While you wouldn't think that would work, it was actually a really beautiful spot. Yes, being surrounded by the names of people murdered in a famous case of mass hysteria might not seem that romantic, but it worked. Besides being dedicated to the people who had died, it was also dedicated to people who had faced oppression. Now, we have it really good here in the US today, but non-traditional families like ours hasn't always had the easiest time. So, it resonated. We were walking around, enjoying the park, and he pulled one of those, oh, I have to tie my shoe. Oh, and here's a ring. It was at this point we figured out how to clear out a memorial of a whole bunch of tourists. There were a few walking around. And when the 6'7" man was suddenly down in front of me, and I was paying attention, put on the ring. I obviously said yes, and looked back up. They were all gone. It was like they had never seen two men get engaged before. We didn't have any plans for our future upcoming wedding. We just kind of thought, oh yeah, it'll happen eventually. So fast forward to October 13th, which is today, by the way, if you hadn't noticed. But back in 2010, of course. The night before, Josh and I had gone out to Alvaritos, down the road this way, and had one of those great, exciting nights that was wholly inappropriate for a weeknight. So the next morning, I woke up, it was a Wednesday, and I was good to go. Josh, not so much. The margaritas had caught up to him, and he called him to work with stomach flu. My job on Wednesdays is delivering the Littleton Courier. I drive around to different stores in town and then in the area to drop off papers at the stores for them to sell. So I was on I-91, headed to St. Johnsbury, talking to Josh on the phone. And as he was laying there recuperating from his hangover, I mean stomach flu, he said, "Why don't we get married?" At first it was a joke. And then suddenly it wasn't. So we thought, yeah, why not? Interesting fact, there is a website called findajp.com. Another interesting fact, according to findajp.com, there were a few in the area at the time. So it was settled. We started calling anybody that we were going to invite and told them they had 3 hours to get to our house for the wedding. Considering the time we gave people, we actually had a pretty good turnout. So I arrived at home, got out of my car, picked some flowers for myself and for Josh, waited for the JP. She showed up. We set up at the field behind our house. Beautiful fall mountains in the background. And we got married. It was a really quick ceremony. So quick, by the end of it, I looked at the JP, looked at Josh. Wait, that's it? We're done? We were. So, we walked up. Friends started throwing these soggy leaves at us because it was wet and gross. And it was kind of perfect. We had our reception on our porch, enjoying some champagne my brother and his wife had brought, and some apple pie that I had got on the way home from farmer's market. And that's how me meeting the love of my life at a farmer's market led to me having farmer's market apple pie for my wedding. I don't think that there's a moral to this story, but if there's anything to get out of it, even if your local farmer doesn't have the corn you're looking for, it still pays to shop local.
Now we have some foliage here for our next speaker. Should set the stage nicely. Maya Manso shares her farm in Waterford, Vermont with her beloved dog, Zeus. Maya follows her passions by creating peace in the world and going on adventures so that she has more humorous stories to tell. Pardon me. Many of her stories revolve around family pets, as there's rarely been a time in her life without at least one trusty companion by her side. Today's story, The Prankster Parrot, is in fact based on a true life story of an African gray parrot named Rocky.
And Rocky has a sense of humor that fits right in with everyone else in the family. Please help me welcome Maya Manso to tell you about the prank story parrot.
So, this speech today, the story today, is about a parrot who has been in my family for 21 years now. And have any of you ever owned or lived with a parrot, or especially an African gray parrot? All right. Well, this is Rocky, so that you have a visual of who we're talking about. Now, Rocky was adopted by my parents in 1997 and lived with my parents until after my dad passed in 2002, and then Rocky came to live with my family and I. And she is quite a character. But let me start off by telling you a couple of things that you might want to know about parrots, and especially the African gray. These are really smart birds. They've actually studied African grays, and there have been some that have the intelligence of a second grader. They can learn their letters, they can learn colors, numbers, and all of that. An interesting thing about parrots, though, is that you can't tell by looking at them whether they're a boy or a girl. If you're a breeder and you want to know what sex the parrot is, you have to put them under anesthesia, and then they can tell. But unless you're, if you're not going to breed the bird, nobody really cares. And the clerk that raised Rocky in the pet store decided that he was a boy. So the first 15 years of our relationship with Rocky was a he. And then she laid eggs. So she underwent this sex change in our minds. So forgive me if I use he or she, I'm still talking about the same bird. The African grays can live a very long time. They can live up to 85 years. And my parents were older. Rocky was 18 months when they adopted her. And so they said to my parents, make a plan, put her in the will so that the kids don't fight over her. Well, my sisters and my brother and I said to my parents, how mean are you to get a bird that's going to pick up your voice and your words? You guys are going to die and we're going to get the bird. And it is funny because when she came to live with us, late at night, if she is tired and thinks we should be going to bed, she starts saying, in my mother's voice, good night, good night, go to bed. And she's like, I should not be this old to have my mother's voice telling me to go to bed every night. But I think the most amazing part about Rocky is her sense of humor. I had never had really any experience with birds before Rocky came into our family. And I was amazed at how interactive she is, how much she wants to be part of the conversation, and really her sense of humor. She will laugh when we are laughing. She will laugh at things or laugh at us if she finds them amusing. Now Rocky came into my family, as I said, in 1997. My parents adopted her. She had been raised in a pet store in Florida, and when my parents would go into the store, my dad was like Dr. Dolittle, loves everybody, and basically started a love affair with this bird at the register. Now my parents never heard Rocky talk at the store, and this was because of another customer at the store who desperately wanted to buy Rocky but would not buy her until he heard her talk. And the clerk did not like this customer, so she taught Rocky two things. The first was, as they saw the man approaching the store through the windows, Rocky would say, "Here comes dumbass." and then she taught Rocky not to talk while the man was in the store. So in general, she didn't talk when there were customers in the store. Well, my dad fell in love with her, and every time he would leave the store, he would say, "Well, Rocky, maybe next time you'll come home with us." And that went on until it was my dad's birthday, and my mom put a credit card down and said, "Today's the day she's coming home." And as they pulled into the yard, stopped the car, opened the door, out of the cage came, "Hello." And she hasn't stopped talking since. In 2000, I ended up in the hospital in Florida with a life-threatening infection that was very aggressive, and my entire family was very, very worried about me. And I ended up in a hospital that was about 2 hours away from my parents' home. So they would get up early, drive the 2 hours, and spend most of the day with me. And my sister had flown down, and she would get up later in the day and come over, relieve my parents, and she would stay into the evening. And on about the third day of this schedule, my parents had gotten up and left, and Rocky was bored, and she knew my sister was in the house. She wanted her attention. The two things you need to know at this point in the story is, number one, it's this very small house, and Rocky was kind of centrally located, so she could pretty much see everything that was going on. And the second is that my sister is not a morning person. She does not like to be woken up. I'm sure you're all familiar with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, particularly grumpy. That's kind of my sister's, normal in the morning. So we have my sister in bed asleep, my parents are gone, have a bored parrot. Well, the bored parrot decides she's going to ring the telephone. And when I say ring the telephone, my mom would actually wait to see how many phones were ringing in the house, because Rocky had the ring, pause down perfectly. So she starts ringing the telephone. And because I'm so critically sick, everybody who was around who heard a phone would leap. Well, my sister, who was blind without her contacts and very grumpy, and very frightened that the phone call was bad news, leaps out of bed and starts trying to find the phone in the bedroom where she is. Well, she finally gets to it, she picks it up, here's the dial tone, but the phone is still ringing. Ring, pause. So she puts down the phone in the bedroom, and she goes into the kitchen, and again, trying to find the phone, finally finds the phone, picks it up, the dial tone again, but the phone is still ringing, so there must be another phone in this house that she needs to answer. And she's really worried about me, so she's really intent on finding this other phone. That's what's going on in her head. Well, she finally makes it over next to the cage, and she realizes the phone that is ringing is in the cage. And she looks at the bird, she goes, "It's you, isn't it?" And what was Rocky's response? Dumbass.
This time I'll be setting up the prop prior to the introduction instead of in the middle. Our final story of our North Country Storytellers event is from Doris Susie. Doris's journey with Toastmasters started in 2009, and today she's going to share her experience of what Toastmasters has given her. With her speech, Basket of Courage, please help me welcome Doris Susie.
This is my basket of courage. This basket sits at home on my desk, and it's a constant reminder of my journey with Toastmasters. And in this basket are treasures, notes, evaluations, suggestions. They're just little bits of life for me that have made me become so sentimental about this basket. sentimental, yet for some reason, I find this to be one of the most valuable pieces I've had in my life. And I wonder, how long have I had this basket? 9 years. 9 years where my journey began with Toastmasters. The year was 2008, the stock market crashed, and I too had crashed. I did not have a job, I had been living in a community, and I didn't know anybody in my community. I also wasn't a college graduate, therefore I had a lot of difficulty finding a new job. In fact, 16 months. 16 months of misery, of not knowing how to network and get out in my community and meet people. And then I heard about Toastmasters, and I thought, what is this all about? This friend of a friend of a friend, Beth, said, you should go to this meeting with me and network. It's being held at Northeast Delta Dental in Concord. And I said, that's perfect. I'd love to get a job there. I remember it was a cold February, it was a Wednesday around noontime. I was told I needed to show up before the meeting started because they were very punctual people. And that I did. 15 minutes prior to the event starting, I stood outside waiting for Beth when I received a text letting me know that she would not be showing up. I could have just turned on my heels and walked away, but instead I said, no, go upstairs, introduce yourself, and learn what Toastmasters is about. And so I did. My heart was pounding, wasn't really sure what to expect, and there as I walked through the door were smiling faces, people making eye contact with me and saying, hello, how are you? Welcome. Thank you so much, as I was greeted with handshakes. I needed to sign in, and soon enough I was sitting at the meeting. And I started to notice that everybody had a role at this meeting, and boy, were they punctual. We started on time, and we ended on time. I learned, I discovered. I saw people talking and nervous and unsure of themselves, yet I saw the effort. I admired this meeting. I admired this crowd. I loved the vulnerability that I saw in front of me because I too was vulnerable. And so just like that, I became a Toastmaster member. It didn't get me the job that I wanted, of course, but that was okay. I got so much more from Toastmasters. And I'm here to tell you, with this basket, my basket of courage, it taught me so much more than just the speeches that we always hear about. I learned to become a very effective networker. In fact, I was so good, I used to bring my business cards with me and blaze through these rooms of people. Effective handshake, 1, 2, 3, make eye contact. Hi, how are you? Where are you from? And so forth and so on. My networking goal continued to grow and flourish. I was joked as the networking queen, yet it worked for me. Toastmasters taught me that I could be very confident, and if I wasn't, I could fake it till I make it like Liz did when she went to the prison. It was amazing, this journey of mine with Toastmasters. I actually was comfortable speaking in public because I was a yoga teacher. I was teaching yoga like Megan. I was okay in the front of the room. Yet I needed some fine tuning. I didn't know what to do with my hands. I didn't know what to do with all my energy because there was a lot of nervous energy, just like right now. And I learned that if I squeezed my toes, it was a great way to change and move the energy, and nobody could tell. And yes, I'm doing it right now. I learned to be a better listener because as an extrovert, I tend to have a lot to say. Yet I needed to zip it and really tune in to my environment. I learned to look at my audience and really scan and become familiar with the energy in the room. I learned to provide vocal variety, where if I had to provide intensity in my storytelling, I could. I also needed to learn how to project my voice, especially like today, without the microphone. Oh, this journey of mine with Toastmasters, it's pretty amazing. It made me a stronger leader. It makes me want to be a leader. I will tell you that storytelling is not something I ever thought I would want to do, yet here I am today. And so these nuggets, these words, these evaluations, these speeches, they sit on my desk, as I mentioned, and they're the constant reminder of my efforts. And perhaps I read one of the notes that I received. I loved how you drew me in, and I felt vulnerable along with you. Thank you for the gift of allowing yourself to be authentic. Lisa wrote me this note probably about 8 years ago. She was brand new to Toastmasters, and I had done my 10th speech, which was an inspirational speech on yoga. She signed up soon after. Let me share one more before we shift gears. Doris, you have an incredible voice and vocal variety. I loved hearing the story and the personality you gave to the characters. I imagine storytelling to be a great strength of yours. True story. I don't know who wrote this note, and it really doesn't matter. Yet it's interesting that this little nugget happened and came true for me. I realized that my journey with Toastmasters was all about learning and evolving. In fact, it was such an experience for me that somebody challenged me and said, "But you enjoy learning. Why is it that you don't have a college degree?" And that was a button pusher for me because I hated high school. I could not stand the thought of school, and yet I made myself go and check it out for good measure. The next thing you know, I signed up and I'm going to school. The next thing you know, I'm getting college credit for my Toastmasters experience. True story. And then I graduated with my bachelor's degree in communications, of course. Oh, the journey of Toastmasters, it just blows my mind. All the different things that came along the way, the friendships, the connections. It's mind-boggling. I was fearless. I became so confident and I became so courageous that as I continued on this journey of learning, I was accepted into the leadership program for the Chamber of Commerce in Concord. And through this track, you had an 8-month time frame doing civic involvement within the community. I learned about Concord TV, and suddenly I wanted to do a show on Toastmasters. And I thought, what is happening to you, Doris? I wanted to get the word out. I was so inspired. Within 4 weeks, we had a show. For 1 year, I committed. 1 month, once a month, I went into the studio. I would have guests on the show, and we'd talk about the show. We'd talk about the benefits. We would talk about that it was so much more than the speeches. It was about the evaluations. It was about being the Toastmaster that was the host of the show that would lead us through. We talked about the evaluator that would evaluate the whole meeting at the end. Imagine that. I liked it. Oh, this journey of mine, it just really is amazing. And so through it all, after that 1 year commitment of doing the show, I decided I want to move. I had been visiting northern New Hampshire for some time. I skied in my 20s, loved coming up here all the time. And suddenly, I wanted to live here. It was a dream of mine to retire here someday. Sure, I was a little bit ahead of schedule, but I had fire in me, and I just wanted to go for it. And just like that, I moved. I found a job, I settled in, and within a few years' time, history repeated itself. And I was not networking. I didn't have a chance to meet people. I was lonely. I was wondering, why did I do this? What am I doing here? And then I thought, wow, hello. Perhaps you should go to a Toastmasters meeting to meet people, to network, to get the word out who you are and what it is that you want to do here in this community. And so that's what I did. I will tell you that it hasn't been all rainbows and unicorns. It's been a bumpy ride. There's less resources living up here, therefore there's less people. And I have to adjust, and boy did I have to adjust. Yet through it all, once again, I arrived at a Toastmasters meeting. I was greeted by beautiful smiles, friendly faces. Who are you? Where are you coming from? And just like that, my journey began once again last fall. I'm not sure where Toastmasters is taking me next. It's been a crazy whirlwind journey for me. Yet I'm so grateful that I've had the courage, that I've faced my fear, that I take my basket and from time to time, if I'm needing a picker-upper or a moment to reflect on my accomplishments, well, I pull out a note card and I read it and I ponder and I reflect once again on what I've done for myself. So my challenge for you today, my audience members, is if you're curious to learn more about us, well, we're just right down the street. And if you're scared about doing public speaking, we know, we get it, we're all scared. Yet if you can find your voice, if you can face your fears, you may be amazed at the accomplishments that you can make for yourself. And so with that, my fellow friends, thank you for your time today.
Thank you to all of our storytellers, and we hope that you have enjoyed our stories. We have one more story, and are all our storytellers back? Okay, they are. We have one more story to tell you, and this one's going to be a little bit different. As Doris explained, and as you've probably gotten the impression by now, part of what we do at Toastmasters is work on our communication and our public speaking. Sometimes that comes in the format of something that's written and rehearsed and practiced, like the stories that you've heard. Other times, you need to be able to tell your story when you're not prepared to do it. You have to be able to get that story out when somebody asks you what your story is. So we practice impromptu speaking at our Toastmasters meetings. And this part of our program, we are going to tell a story using this story stick. Liz will be getting us started on that, and I will go ahead and invite our storytellers back out for a demonstration in how we practice our impromptu speaking.
I was walking outside in the backwoods where I live, and I came upon this old man. He said, "Come here, come on over." And I did, and he was holding this stick. He said, "You see this stick? It's a magical stick. And whoever holds it, they get a special power." And I was very intrigued by this magical stick with a special power. And he said that it's different for everyone. And I couldn't wait to get my grubby little hands on this stick and bring it home to find out what my special power would be. I ran all the way home, and all day long I held onto this magical stick, and nothing. I was so disappointed. I went to bed thinking, yeah, I was tricked by this old man. I got up in the morning, and the same thing I do every morning. I have 43 chickens. They're egg layers. And I go out and I clean the coop in the coops. And I love listening to their chatter. They cluck, 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 and they're chattering. And I just enjoy listening to that. That's my meditation in the morning. Well, this particular morning, I could understand them. I could understand what my girls were saying. They were saying thank you for cleaning up our coops and giving us fresh water and making us very happy. We're happy hens. And I'm like, you're welcome, girls. And then I said, you know, I have a question for you ladies. A question that mankind has been curious about for centuries. Which came first? The chicken or the egg? And my girls, they're going, we can't tell you that, dumbass.
This magical stick in my hands does not allow me to talk to chickens. I already talked to carrots. However, when I walk with this stick on my land, I go out into the middle of my stone circle and I summon the dragons. And most people think that dragons are scary, fire-breathing things. But when I stand in the middle of my stone circle and I wave my wand, thousands of tiny little figments come out of the fire pit in the middle and form beautiful clouds and fly all over my land. And that is why I'm always sorry to have to hand my stick off to anyone else.
Now you could use such a stick to summon dragons or talk to chickens. And those are all mighty fine things. Chickens, though, they remind me of dinosaurs. Have you ever really seen chickens? I mean, seen them? They're these little, mean-eyed, and I'm sorry, guys. I really am sorry. But they're not nice. Have you ever had to deal with a rooster? Really deal with a rooster? Those things are mean. I would take a dragon over a chicken any day. So I guess if I had to choose between summoning a dragon and talking to chickens, I would pick the dragons. Hopefully, though, the dragons would be helpful. Dragons are known for roasting people and eating them. So perhaps I wouldn't do that either. What other powers would I find with this stick, I wonder? For me, and perhaps it'd be counterintuitive, because a walking stick like this wouldn't be incredibly useful for flying. That's what I'd want to do. I love flying dreams. I bet it's just as awesome in real life. I don't know how I'd do it with this stick. Would it be something where I'd have to kind of flap? Maybe Superman, you know? Like that. I don't know. But apparently, not only would it give me flying abilities, it would give me the ability to break the stick on stage and make it a little less magical, and I apologize to whoever holds this stick. Dear God.
This stick was found at the bottom of the ocean. And it was found during the Great War between the vampires, the mermaids, and the dragons. A long time ago, Esmeralda, Queen of the Mermaids, was both loved by George, King of the Dragons, and by Steve, King of the Vampires. George and Steve fought in an epic battle. George and Steve twirled around in the sky, clinging to one another as they gouged into each other's throats, blood spraying everywhere, all into the ocean, until they fell into the ocean, and at the very bottom, they found this stick. Esmeralda, the Queen of the Mermaids, was so taken aback from this display of the dragon and vampire war that she said,
Hear ye, it's the famous stick found from the bottom of the ocean. It was buried for quite some time. Generations and generations had missed it. And then finally, I was walking down by the Connecticut River in Monroe, and I tripped on this bump. And I looked down, and here was this incredible stick. Now, a lot of times I passed right over sticks, but this stick really called to me. So I uncovered it a little bit, brought it up. So this is a really magical stick. And the moment I put it in my hands, I could feel the energy resonate. It also had a hole on it, and I knew that it was actually a stick that was meant to be played. So I brought it up to my mouth and it played a magical tune. Which in itself is an amazing quality because I cannot sing or play any instrument. I knew it had powers at that point. I brought it home, and that's when I found the real powers of the magical flute stick that was once buried in the ocean for years. I could turn anything I wanted into cookies. My son was so pleased with the magical stick that he tried to steal it from me and put it in his closet. I opened the closet one day, and there was a pile of chocolate chip cookies. I opened the other drawer, and there were whoopie pies. I opened the drawer underneath his bed, and there were tea cakes. I said, this stick has got to go. But before I give the stick away, I want you to know that at our front entrance, we have snacks that were provided by the magical stick. And then I was ready to turn the magical stick over.
And this magical stick helped me become not only a mountain woman, but a mermaid. And my opportunity to become a mermaid allowed me to go back into the ocean to return the stick. And as I went down into the water and swam lower and lower, and it became darker and darker, I slowly began to drop the stick. And as I rose myself higher and looked around, there were a sea of fish and pirates. And they were wondering, where has the stick been all this time? And I didn't know what to say. I thought, well, I'm not quite sure. I'm just the messenger. And you see, I was a mountain girl, and I really, really, really wanted to be, well, a mermaid. Because the mountain girl, cave girl, wolfman girl thing really wasn't working out anymore. And so my journey from that point began to educate the pirates that we were friends, that we weren't enemies, that we could share the stick. Well, then no, maybe not. I was having reservations now because, well, I just wasn't sure.
Well, I cannot testify to all the stories that we've heard thus far, but obviously the stick has been around. This is the second time, however, that I have seen this particular stick. The first time, I was motoring along in the hills of Vermont. I don't know where, because I wasn't using a map, I was just following my nose. And I was motoring in my 1931 Ford Model A, with the windshield folded flat over the hood. It's a wonderful way to travel, because there's no barriers between you and everyone you pass by. Sort of like riding on horseback or a bicycle. But I was descending down this steep hill, and I had a rather heavy load in the back of the truck. And I was a little worried about the brake adjustment. And ahead of me, in the shadows, were trees crowning the road. And there was something there, and I knew I didn't want to hit it, so I'm trying to get the vehicle slowed down. And what I see doesn't make sense, because it has so many legs and tails. What could it be? There in the shadows, as I'm squeaking along, as the brakes come along down, I see the shortest man I've ever seen, with the tallest hat that I've ever seen. And the man had a stony face, and he was surrounded by a sea of puppies. But it explained all the tails and feet. But you'd think he would explain or say something as I squeaked by. And then I noticed he was holding this stick. And not a word did he utter, nor did the puppies. They all just stared stonily at me. As I got to the bottom of the hill, I looked back, and they were gone, except for the stick, which was standing by itself, glowing in the dark. And then,
this is a healing stick. You see, because I like martial arts, I really wanted to be a sword fighter. I wanted to be able to protect myself. And I ended up sort of crippled. So the sword that I wanted to use became my cane. And I'd hobble around leaning on this crutch, this stick, hoping that one day it would help me learn some superpowers. I looked at it and I studied it. I held it up to the moon. Please, moon, please, magic moon, make this stick powerful. Make it be healing. Make it help. It became a bright, vibrant blue light. I could see the rays shooting out from all over it. I almost had to drop it. It looked at me and I looked at it, and it said, "You've got this. You've got this. You don't need me. You've got your powers." So I cast it off, and I am stick free.
So that's how we do our impromptu speaking. It's generally pretty funny like that. We have a hard time doing our what we call table topics in our meetings without having that round of laughter. So that's a very prime example of what we're up to at our meetings. And while I have everyone here on stage, if you could take a step up here, join me in this vicinity in the stage. I will say to the audience, if you too have a story to tell, or you're interested in coming to have fun and laugh with us, we meet every second, fourth, and fifth Thursday of the month at the Fair's Inn. Our meetings are at 6 o'clock, and you guys are welcome to join us anytime as a guest. You're welcome to just pop in and check it out. You can participate or not participate, either way. Our next meeting is October 25th, so if you'd like to join us, go ahead and mark your calendar and pop in. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you North Country Storytellers.